Hello everybody and welcome back to the channel, and today we are going to be finally having the discussion of whether or not it is worth it to switch between Microsoft Flight Sim 2020 to 2024. We're going to be talking about the good, the bad, the ugly, and everything in between, so stick around guys as we get airborne here. We got a lot to discuss. Got quite a few opinions on quite a few different things, and I'm going to give you guys some things to think about. Again, the good and the bad. So here we go.
If you are interested in any of my tutorial guides for Microsoft Flight Simulator, or simply interested in supporting the channel, consider joining me on Patreon. Patreon subscribers level tier 2 and above have access to all of my guides as well as any future guides that come down the road. Patreon link can be found in the description below.
Alright guys, so as we get airborne here, and we talk about the performance, that's where we're going to start. That's obviously the big kicker, always is the big kicker, always is the big thing to be considerate of whenever you're referring to the pros and cons of simulation, really. And the big thing is that it has changed dramatically in 2024. They've really come a very long way with the latest Sim Update Beta 2, or Sim Update, well, I guess that would technically be right, Sim Update 2 Beta. There's definitely been some very massive changes. Overall stability and functionality, new aircraft are starting to become more compatible with it. So the overall performance of the sim has been fantastic lately. I have to admit, frame rates are high, both in virtual reality and 2D. I haven't had really any issues with loading anymore. The loading speeds have been pretty fantastic. But some of my gripes still exist with the controls. So speaking to the control scheme, let's get onto that now. Performance is performance. I would say, again, performance pretty much across the board is pretty similar to 2020. Setting up controls, let's talk about that. In 2020, I already think it's an absolute pain in the butt. I think it's just awful. Oh, we're already set there, cool. And then you add the 2024 control scheme, and I know what they tried to do, but first off, having to jump into the menus every time and leave the main menu and not be able to do it directly from the aircraft. Why they do that, I don't know. The fact that you have to hit escape, you have to hit settings, you have to go through their stupid cinematic, and then you have to tell it whether or not you want this to apply to this aircraft, a default aircraft, and then finding if you bind it incorrectly, then you have to go back through all that again. This is why I prefer SPAD.next across the board when it comes to that, by the way, because I can have SPAD on one screen and literally just click and go and test, just ease of use. But I think that the way they implemented it in 2024 was even more frustrating. Like, I don't know if it's just the GUI itself. I don't like the GUI. I think it looks like it's going to sound mean, and I'm not really trying to be that guy, but it looks like crap. I think that the way it operates is just garbage. One of the things that I ran into just today, we were going to fly in 2024, but I was trying to set up the Moza yoke. And 2020 does not have this issue, just for the record. Okay, so what I'm about to tell you, 2020 is not doing it. When I go into 2024 and I tell it, I'm trying to bind the aileron axis, and it's got that screen in the bottom right hand corner that's basically the control viewer, I think is what it says, or something like that, but it tells you what buttons are currently active, right? In 2024, it has a whole bunch of different things that are currently, and I could be like this, and it says are currently in use, that are being triggered, whether it be the axis or a trigger, whatever. Go to 2020, none of that. So what I was running into is I'm trying to bind the aileron axis, right? And so it does the whole scanning thing. I turn the yoke to the left. It says that it binds it. But then as I look closer, it's binding it and like 2 other buttons. So I have no control over that. And there's no way for me to go into it and tell it, hey, ignore these 2 functions. I have no idea what the hell it was picking up. To this moment, I still have no idea what it was actually tracking as being triggered. My hands were off of it. Again, it came into 2020 to test it, and 2020 had nothing. I would click the button, and 2020 is notorious for that. You tell it what button, you tell it to search for the key binding, and if there's anything else triggered, man, it pops up right then and there. 2020 had no problem. So that could be a bug, and that's fine. I'm really trying to be level-headed here. Because the thing is, like, I'm ready up here. I want to make the switch to 2024. But as someone who wants to just be a part of a flight simulation, this is where my struggles are. 2024 is so gamey. And there's still so many headaches for the simple things. That's my problem. It's the simple things that I'm finding to be such a pain in the ass. Whether it be binding my controls, popping out the screen, setting up the triple monitors in 2024, I find that to be far more frustrating than it was in 2020. And in 2020, I think it's stupid. I mean, I gotta admit, you guys can notice right here, there's some trim differences, and that's because it's annoying that, again, in order to set these, you have to go into the actual options menu, and in order to adjust their positioning, you have to do it from the options menu. Well, from the options menu, you can't see your deck. You can't see everything is blocked with the stupid menu screen. What they should do is implement something that pops out, and it's just one little slider up or one little menu up in the top right corner, so you can see your full panoramic view, or you know what I mean, triple screen view, whatever. And again, these are all minor things, but they start to add up, and that's where, like tonight, again, that's where I gave up tonight. I was gonna fly in 2024. I'm just like, it's been a long day at work. There's a long day with the kids, long day with the fam, doing the family thing around here. And so it got really frustrating, and I'm just like, nope, like, I didn't have the mental capacity to deal with 2024 today. And that's what sucks, is because when it works, it's great. It really is. But what I'm finding is that when you want to just jump into something, that's actually more difficult than, picking something that is a more challenging aircraft. I don't know how to explain it. So with me, 2024, where it's lacking, the performance has increased dramatically, hands down. VR performance, fantastic. 2D performance, fantastic. The ability to easily set up your graphic settings. Although even there, here's another one. Let's say you want to change your graphic settings, the overall preset. You want to change it from, I don't know, medium. Let's say you're going medium to ultra. Every single change you make, and this is, again, something silly, but again, they start to add up. But you change it from medium to high, you have to hit confirm. You want to go high to ultra, you have to hit confirm again. So if you're ever just wanting to make a quick change, you can't. So between the control scheme, the settings, a lot of the little bugs that happen just around random, just doing the simple little things drive me nuts, man. And so it's like, I'm glad to see, and I truly am, I'm very happy to see the performance increase, and we're going to keep emphasizing that, because that is probably the biggest kicker, and it was certainly the biggest downside to the sim prior to now. But now that the performance is starting to get ironed out, I really hope that they start focusing on those little things, because for me, I'm someone who's constantly switching gears, and most people, my gripes probably aren't going to affect most people, and that's the other thing that I'm trying to remember, is that, doing the type of content creation that I do, I'm in sort of a unique situation that doesn't really apply to probably most simmers, right? And that being, like, for example, that I'm constantly switching out gear, I'm constantly trying new hardware, I'm rotating my rig between driving and flying simulation, so I got to take that into consideration too. I never turned my lights on, I just realized that. Okay, that should be good for now. So it's things like that I'm also trying to remember, that I'm probably being a bit nitpicky about things that aren't necessarily on the same plateau as most people, right? Because of the situation that I operate in is a bit different than most. But what I still find as an overall picture very difficult for me to mentally make the switch, even with new aircraft, You know, we have multiple aircraft developers that are starting to become more and more compatible with Microsoft Flight Simulator 2024, and that's great because, as we know, when it first launched, almost nothing was. You got PMDG. No longer after this last release, they're not going to be releasing any new products for Flight Simulator 2020. That's what's trying to get me to get in there and get things set up. Setting this thing up was a nightmare to the point where I couldn't even get it working tonight. And again, that is a very unique situation. I know that's unique to me. There are plenty of people who are using this yoke on 2024, so it's not that I'm knocking, necessarily blaming 2020 for that. There is an oddity that why did it happen in 2024 but not for me in 2020? 2020 I was able to jump in, get it set up, no problems, it just worked, right? So there are certain things like that. What is that? That's weird. There's like something black that there's schmutz. I got schmutz on my stuff, man. Schmutz. So I'm kind of curious where you guys are at. Where are you guys at with the overall user experience, the day-to-day, the simple stuff? How do you feel? You know, am I being too pissy and bitchy? And it's possible. It's possible. I am not disputing the possibility that I'm just being a crabby little pain in the ass. Okay? But it's those little things that are still preventing me personally from making that switch all the way down, you know, and just saying, all right, we're back in 2024, say goodbye to 2020, you know, kind of situation. 2020, I feel like if you want to just jump in, pick a plane, and fly it, 2020 is still the way to go. If you like all the other little stuff, which I do too, but again, there are times that I just want to jump in and fly. I just want to get going. I feel like 2024 is a much more difficult thing to set up. I think that's my biggest gripe, is the setup process. You know, as I'm sitting here processing it, as I'm talking out loud, you know, I mean, I don't normally do this to myself, right? But as I'm talking it out loud, I think it's the setup process in general. Once you get 2024 to where you want it to be, I'm sure it's a fantastic operation here, man. But, whoa. But it's getting it to that point. You know, the growing pains are still absolutely there. And I guess I feel like they're the simple things. And the simple things, because they're the simple things, have become more frustrating. Because since they're the simple things, they should have been simply addressed. And I don't know. And a lot of this stuff is probably preference, and it's going to be, you know, me being biased. I always felt that even the GUI in 2020 was very clunky, and so, you know, for me it's very frustrating right from the get-go, and I have to sort of control myself mentally because the menu system in 2024 I really hate. I really despise it. I think they could have just, it goes back to that KSS, right? Keep it simple, stupid. And I don't know why they didn't just keep it simple, you know, and you know, why they have to make everything so flashy, because what I'm finding is I think the flashiness adds to far more of the headache and the taints for me the experience, you know, as someone who is constantly having to test new things. You know, I'm testing new things, I'm trying new softwares, I'm trying new hardwares, and you know, I love that aspect. That's probably one of my favorite parts about what I do with this, you know. But from, oh, easy girl. And I really hope that things like that start being worked on, because I'm sure that's hey, you settle down, come on. I really feel like that's something that needs to be addressed, and that's why I'm sort of making this videos. What do you guys think? And I saw in my last news video when I mentioned the idea of switching from 2024 to 2020 and back and forth. A lot of people were saying, I'm diehard 2024. What do you feel about if you are diehard 2024? What do you think about, you know, am I griping just to gripe at this point? Or do you think there's some validity to the things that I'm saying? You know, how are you getting around those? Do you have those same frustrations? This is not going to go well. Come on, baby. We're at stall speed. Come on. Oh, God, that was ugly. Oof. Oh, that was awful. That was a bummer. Terrible landing. Mercy, that was a terrible landing. But anyways, so I just kind of, I wanted to see more or less what you guys' opinion was on everything. I wanted to hear what your thoughts were on this kind of stuff, and how you have found to address it, and if you find that you have addressed it, or if it's still a frustrating situation for you, you know, let me know what you guys think. And if you guys have any tips and tricks on setting some of the stuff up or dealing with some of these headaches, let me know. Because it's, for me, I'm getting very frustrated dealing with trying to do what I feel is something simple. You know, whether it be setting up a control. Again, I hate the control scheme. And that's something that I know that the control scheme isn't going to change for just me. Like, it's just not. And I know that. And so that's one of those things that I just have to suck up and deal with. And I know I do. But, you know, like I said, I'm curious what you guys think about all this and where you're at with it. So let me know. What do you guys feel about 2024 in a overall feeling of it? Like, don't just think about the parts that you love in the flying. Think about the setup, the controls, the graphics, the, you know, outside the norms. If you're someone like me who's constantly swapping gear in and out, you know, having to change gear or hardware from one aircraft to the other, is what that experience is like, and things like that. Let me know what you guys think. Is it time to make the switch to 2024? But don't just bash anybody, right? Don't just bash the thoughts. Support your statements, right? Tell me, you know, I have a hard time believing that I'm the one who's felt any of this stuff, but it's just been really an aggravating thing. Every time I tell myself now's the time, and I start going for that full setup configuration, and that's what I was trying to do tonight. I was going to get everything ready to roll and just make that push into 2024, maybe start a career and really start driving it in. And it just, I couldn't even get the damn yoke set up, you know? So anyways, as always, guys, I hope you appreciate the video. I just wanted to give my feedback. I really want to hear yours, tips and tricks. Be sure to join the Discord. Link to it is down in the description of all of my videos. Would love to have a chat with you guys. You guys are always welcome to reach out to me direct. I don't have a problem with that at all. I love talking with all of you guys. I've had a few hour phone calls with quite a few of you guys over the last couple months, which has been fantastic. It's really nice to, you know, get to know you guys on that personal level. It's a lot of fun. But as always, guys, stay safe and healthy. See you in the next one.